Before we start, let me quickly just say that you can get the full Construct 3 source project and the full game by supporting me on my Patreon page. Hello and welcome to the devlog of Runes of Aereal. In this episode of the devlog I will be explaining to you how the exact mechanics of the game work. So the exact mechanics of the game can best be shown using the battle sandbox. And I'll be showing it through Construct 3 here. Let me start up. Okay, there we have the battle sandbox. The exact details on what it is and how it works is for a later video. For now, you just need to remember that this interface will configure a battle. It's actually a complete configuration interface for what a battle needs to do. So as the game progresses, the user or the player will be met with several challenges, several battles along its coast. And what will happen, actually, these battles will be four-part randomized, and also will be influenced by what cards the player has, what artifacts the player has, etc. So a lot of things that are variable actually in a battle. And let me just choose a preset here. This one, for example. And let me start the game. So what we're showing now is the actual game mechanics. The game mechanics, it's a turn-based game, so that means it's now my turn to do something. And in order to do something, I've been dealt 5 cards here. These are the 5 cards on my hand, and I can hover over them, and then I see what exactly that card does. Like that. Here is the left deck, the cards that can be dealt. There are 19 of them. And this is the right deck, the deck where the cards come to lie when they are discarded from your hand or they are played. They come on this right hand deck. Whenever these cards are empty, they will go from the right deck back to the left deck, once they are shuffled, of course, and then will come back to be played once more. Along in the interface, you can see that there are a number of enemies. There are 4 possible enemies in this version of the game. Possibly later we will add another few enemies. And these enemies can be seen here from left to right. There's a kind of bird, there's a small spider, there's a werewolf, and there's a large spider. And each enemy actually has an enemy HUD. You see the HUD here, and it has actually 3 parts, of which you can only see 2 right now. Maybe that's not a good demo, but we'll come back to that later eventually. The third part, which you're not seeing here, is shielding. An enemy can shield itself. Okay? So the shield should be hacked away, let's say, before its health is being diminished. So you can see how much health the enemy has. Here, this one has 30 health. 10 health, 10 health, 10 health. Yeah. And if there were to be shield for that enemy, you would see that there's a shield symbol here below it, which would also have a value that diminishes as the player diminishes in health, or is being dealt damage anyhow. Above the enemy indicator, you can see here that it's going to do something. It's going to do something. If it's a sword like that, it's going to deal some damage. You can see it in the hint here. It intends to do some damage, and how much damage it will damage you by 4. This one intends to do a spell, which is kind of defensive usually, and this one also intends to do some damage. So that's for the enemies. The way they do damage and how that is calculated and stuff like that, that's for different videos. I will explain to you how that works in very detail. So if we look at the HUD here above, here in the middle you can see how much health your hero has. So it's 40 health, and the maximum health is also 40, so we're at 100% health. At the left here you can see the number of energy points you have to spend, and each card has a number of energy points. For example, this card will cost you 1 energy point. Some cards are also free, let's say, they cost 0 energy points. And whenever cards are being used, the energy points diminish. Once the cards are being used, the energy points diminish, and when all of the energy points are gone, let's say, you have to end your turn. Here we see the coins you have gathered. So right now in the game the coins doesn't really matter because there's no use for the coins yet. There will be shops, etc. Later in the game which we'll implement together. And here is the 2000 points of experience. Also not very applicable right now, but we'll use that in the future to adapt the skills of our character. We'll also implement that together. Here on top we've got a number of slots for artifacts. There can be up to 8 slots of artifacts, but right now there's only 5 unlocked, let's say. And of that 5 there's only 1 filled with 1 single artifact, and this is the bear's paw. And what it does, if the enemy HP is less than 50%, you gain 10 HP at the end of the battle. That's something which is done using the bear paw. We'll come back to that later on how that is implemented really, and yeah, we'll come back to that in detail. The last thing I want to show you here in regards to the interface is this button here at the top left. So we've got 2 things we can play as a player. Either we play a card, or we can also play a scroll. And a scroll is like a card, but where a card will stay in our deck, a scroll is something you can find or buy, and once it's used, it's gone actually. So you can click the button here to go to the scrolls, and then you see we have 4 different scrolls now. We can use that scroll. Once it's used, it's gone. Actually, you can't use it anymore. And depending on the skill level of your character, actually you can use up to X number of scrolls inside a battle. So now there's an option to use 2 scrolls in a battle. Once you could, for example, have 20 scrolls on your hand and then finish a battle with 20 scrolls. That's not the idea. There's a limited number of scrolls you can use in one single battle. And you can see you have 2 scrolls left to use. And we can just switch back to the cards here using a button, and we come back to the cards. Now let's use a card. For example, this one, the Runes of Madness, will cost you 1. You can gain 6 shields and add 1 lightning card to your hand. So let's do that. This is a card which is not directly targeted at an enemy. So you can just use it and drag it somewhere on the playing field. You can see that it turns blue a bit. There's a blue halo around it. Once that does, you can drop the card. And you can see that this is gained 8 now. You will have noticed that the number of shield it has done was lower in the card. So you might question, okay, why is it 8? Well, that's because this hero has a level 1 defense, and once you have a level 1 defense, extra shield is added to your shield whenever you do a defensive card for adding shield. So the levels of your hero will also influence really what the cards really do. So now we're going to use a card which is directed at an enemy directly. So for example, this lightning card will also cost me 0 energy points. Deal 4 damage and remove from deck. That means deal 4 damage. Let's see if this has no attack level 1, so it will effectively use 4 damage. And if it's stated that it's removed from the deck, that means that it's totally gone in this battle and it won't be moved up to this deck here at the right hand side. Of course, in the next battle it will appear again, but for this battle it will be gone. That's what this means, removed from deck. You can drag it up into an enemy, and then once you do that, you can see it's highlighted. You see the highlighting of the enemy. Let's deal 4 damage to this spider here. And then you can see it's gone from 10 to 6 health, actually. Some deal a sort of a state to an enemy. That means, for example, this one here applies venom. Once the venom is applied to an enemy, that enemy becomes poisoned, and it will deal 3 damage, because there's 3 venom here, at the end of our turn to that enemy. So let's do that here to that, for example, that werewolf. So it's done 6 damage, and it's also poisoned for 3. That means that at the end of our turn, this enemy will take 3 damage. So let's end our turn now to see what happens once the enemies attack.
Enemy turn.
Your turn. So that's what happened here. Now the enemy, one of the enemies cast a spell, and that spell made us feeble. You can see that here. Feeble, your attack to only half the damage for 3 more turns. That's a state that our character can get, and that's also the only state that our character can get in this version. Of course, in later versions we will be adding more different states, like weak or strong, or also poisoned, or whatever, whatever can happen, whatever we intend to implement, really. And we're going to implement here together later on. You've seen here that it was 4. This werewolf had 4. The 3 damage has been done, and it's going to become 1. Actually. So basically, these are, in a nutshell, all of the game mechanics. I haven't gone into detail on all of the different cards, all of the different scrolls, all of the different artifacts. That's not part of this video, actually, but we'll come back to those, to this information later on in later videos. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, to keep you posted on the next videos in this devlog. Also, this code for this game is also available. If you support me on my Patreon page, you will get regular updates of the current code of this game, so you can check it out, you can learn from it, or you can use it in your own game if you would want to. Take care.